Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of the story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, everybody, today's date, January 23rd, 2020, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Yep, as you probably already noticed, or you've probably been following, we are starting to go back to doing Wednesdays in the middle of the week, and of course, recapping on Saturdays. So I like to call this the weekend edition, if you will. Hopefully everybody's doing all right. So let's get after it. So the only thing we can sit there and say, guys, is, well, let's start with some good news first.
Walking out to that small crowd greeting him there before he heads on to Marine One. Last time he will make this walk as President of the United States. We all got used to over the last 4 years watching the president as he would walk towards Marine One, give many impromptu press conferences, talk for what was supposed to be a couple of minutes, would often turn into John Carl. It could often turn into 10, 20, 30 minutes, maybe even longer.
You know, it's something presidents before him really didn't do, except in very unusual circumstances. I remember one of the very first times that he went to Marine One and took that detour over to talk to those of us in the press corps, looking across over to the Rose Garden and seeing his press secretary at that time, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, running across because she had no idea that her boss was about to hold a press conference and of course felt that she needed to be there to find out what he was going to say. But this is something he started to do and did. I mean, with great regularity. I can't tell you how many times I was over there.
I will never get tired of watching reporters talk about Trump leaving and trying to find good things to say. It is funny as all get out. This is a man that has spurned the press, has called them fake news, has literally did everything sort of used them as any different than a crowd that he wants attention from. And watching him walk away from the White House in the final time, well, it inspired a song. It inspired a song the congregation has to sing, and I gotta play it one more time just because it's needed. I will never get tired of that song. That was actually by Billy D. Washington. And honestly, say two things about that. Number one, I never get tired of that song. Number two, we as a people can take a simple sentence and make it into a hit. But yes, I love the fact that we could finally say that Trump is gone, but unfortunately, his spirit is still around. Because I can guarantee that White House, they probably cleaned that thing from top to bottom when him and Melania left. But anyway, some other good news that we can finally sit there and say that yes, we do have a Madam Vice President.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Again, that is a beautiful moment historically for the first African American vice president. That we can honestly now say, Madam VP Kamala Harris. Of course, let's be honest, also, Joe Biden was also sworn in as the president this past Wednesday amidst heavy security just because of what happened at the Capitol. And at the same time, it was a smaller crowd because, again, what happened at the Capitol. But moving right along, guys, as far as information we have, like I said, unfortunately, Trump may be out of the White House, but unfortunately, he's still not going away because somehow, even when banned off social media, this bitch still finds a way to talk. Especially with him talking about starting a new political party that he would call the Patriot Party. Because he is sick, because pretty much he believes that the Republicans, because they didn't back him or prevent Joe Biden from winning the election, he has sort of turned on the Republicans and actually wants to start his own party because, you know, he's the one guy in really in all presidential history that has never conceded. Even now, he still has not called Joe Biden to congratulate him on winning the presidency. Mike Pence did eventually call Kamala Harris like 2 days before the inauguration. 2 days. In which Mike Pence was at the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But the interesting thing about this whole thing is Trump even now still believes that he can come back. He still believes it. And that's the thing that should not be taken off lightly. But at the same time, it should be some concerning alarms for people. Even more so as far as what he did in his final hours before president, as far as some interesting pardons he let go.
Outgoing President Trump have just come in. Let's get the news from Joe Johns at the Capitol. What do we know?
Well, we're just getting information from the White House about the pardons, and I can tell you this, according to the White House, the president granted pardons to 73 individuals, commuted the sentences of another 70, so that's what, 143 acts of clemency by the president in the last hours of his administration. And just run down through some of the names. We've already told you about Steve Bannon, that love-hate relationship he's had with the former senior advisor who was charged with defrauding people who were sending money in to help build President Trump's border wall. He obviously has gotten a pardon. Here are some other names. Some are not surprises, and you probably heard this before. A couple rappers, Kodak Black, Lil Wayne. There's an individual named Elliot Broidy, who was a top fundraiser for the Trump campaign. Paul Erickson, who was a conservative political operative who was charged with wire fraud. Kwame Kilpatrick, the former Detroit mayor, gets a pardon. He was charged with racketeering. And Avian Sella, this is an individual who was connected to the Jonathan Pollard espionage case that dates all the way back to 1986. So those are a few of the names of these individuals. But the top line, Chris, is 140 individuals total get clemency from the president on his way out the door here. 73 individuals had their got pardons, and 70 people actually.
So 143 people actually got a pass from Donald Trump. Unfortunately, those 143 people really were criminals. Now, of course, this is nothing new. Presidents on their way out always list an amount of clemencies and pardons for various people. But if you look at Donald Trump's list, Steve Bannon, known nationalist and racist, was actually facing campaign fraud. Lil Wayne always loved Donald Trump, his opinion, albeit stupid, but his opinion. Kanye, really? I mean, not Kanye. Kwame Patrick, a former mayor who was caught embezzling, mind you. Former mayor of Detroit, he gets released. I mean, it's almost as if the people that he pardoned really should stay in jail or stay accused of the crimes that they committed. But again, we shouldn't be surprised by that. We really shouldn't, because, like I said before, Donald Trump was bailing out his buddies. I mean, he actually bailed out most of his staff, including Roger Stone, who was facing 9 years in prison for being convicted of lying to the FBI. Keep in mind, he was convicted, and now he was about to serve a 9-year sentence, and of course, Trump stepped in and issued him a pardon. However, what's really interesting is that Trump didn't try to issue a pardon for his family or his friend or himself, which we all know the president can't pardon himself, but that wouldn't keep Trump from trying anyway. But moving right along, I said some other great things happened at the inauguration, particularly of Officer Eugene Goodman and the fact of the honorary title he was given, but honestly, they need to go ahead and give him the title anyway.
That's Eugene Goodman, who has been given the honorary designation today of the acting deputy sergeant of arms. And if you're not familiar with his story, then we'll try to do it justice in these few moments we have. He's walking with Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff, and he has that point of honor because he was on duty, Capitol Police officer, on that day, January 6th. And as the mob approached, a camera captured his quick thinking as he led the mob away from what he knew to be an open door right into the Senate chamber. And in doing so, could have perhaps prevented untold harm. And
right. So as they're going into it, of course, this was the day of the inauguration. As you can see, Kamala Harris and her husband being walked down. Yes, Eugene Goodman, Officer Eugene Goodman, was that man that you see those iconic pictures where he led the crowd away from the open door that could have led right into the Senate chambers. He was actually given the honorary title of Deputy Sergeant at Arms. For all those that don't know what that means, basically he's the guy that enforces the rules and regulations inside the Senate chamber. He also protects the Senate chamber. So even though it was an honorary title, give that man the role, because if it wasn't for him, who knew what would have happened that day if the rioters got in? I'm sorry, I don't want to call them rioters. Who knew that those white domestic terrorists, if they found a way inside to the Senate chambers while all this was going on, who knows what could have possibly happened? Although, let's be honest, when you see a guy coming there with zip ties and you see people coming there and hang a noose outside the Capitol, it is fairly obvious what a lot of those white terrorists had in mind. I'm just saying. But moving right along, like I said before, and this also I thought was a crazy sentiment. Now, you guys got to keep in mind, the white terrorists, when they came on the Capitol, got very little police action. I mean, they weren't even in riot gear or things of that nature. Now, here's the funny part. Of course, this past month, the Monday on MLK Day, on MLK, where a lot of people, have events and things of that nature and marches on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. This was actually the view from the New York City Police Department. And I just think to myself, it's very interesting that, as you can see, they're literally clothed in riot gear with, they don't have guns drawn, but let's be honest, they have guns on them. And this was a response when black people. And the thing that I point out was just that I told everybody else this, and I know everybody, when the Capitol got hit on the 6th, I know everybody was thinking the same thing. Had it been black people, they would still be pressure washing the Capitol steps off with blood. Because what does that say about our country? That if you march peacefully as black folks, they send out the riot squad. But if you're a bunch of white folks, you're harmless until you find out they're not harmless. And that's the thing that I thought was crazy was, first off, it's a march for Martin Luther King. Why do you need immediate police presence? That's what I'm trying to figure out, honestly. Just because the simple fact of the matter, it's almost like we're saying the same thing as far as the messaging goes. But in the words of Eddie Griffin, did you get the message that you do treat us differently? There's two sets of justice here in America, which I'm going to go into momentarily because I have some stories. Some updated stories where, again, I think it's crazy, but it explains the fact there are two justice systems in America. But first, I want to get to this individual who took it upon herself, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, is going to bring articles of impeachment against the newly put in 46th president. I cannot make this up.
Articles of impeachment on President Joe Biden. We'll see how this goes.
Yes, that woman right there is Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who decided that as soon as Joe Biden was sworn in office, she's going to go ahead and issue articles of impeachment. Why is she issuing, and what's her reasoning, if you want to know? Well, her reasoning is that President Joe Biden is unfit to hold the office of the presidency. His pattern of abuse of power as President Obama's vice president is lengthy and disturbing. President Biden has demonstrated that he will do whatever it takes to bail out his son, Hunter, and line his family's pockets with cash from corrupt foreign energy companies. I wish I could read. Let's hang on a second. I just want to say something right now because, again, this is funny to me. Let me get this straight. President Joe Biden is unfit to hold the office due to his pattern of abuse as Obama as President Obama's vice president. Somebody doesn't know history. How in the world do you turn around and try to implement a newly elected president off previous actions that have nothing to do with the point of what you're impeaching right now? I'm sorry. That part right there, that's the part that gets me. How in the world? Because you would think Marjorie Taylor would turn around, Marjorie Greene would turn, Marjorie, whatever. The White House thinks that the White House is crazy, basically. It just amazes me so that she says, well, and I love the part where she sat there and says, he will do whatever it takes to bail out his son Hunter and line his family's pockets with cash from corrupt foreign energy companies. I think you're pointing at the wrong family. I almost want to go, I think you're pointing at the wrong family, Marjorie. I truly believe you are. Because it is interesting to me where this is the same person. Again, if you're wondering who Marjorie Taylor Greene is, this will help.
Staunch conservative Republican will be the first woman to represent Georgia's 14th congressional district. But there is another first Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't want to talk about.
Ms. Greene, do you not speak to the press at all?
You can arrange an interview, talk to my staff.
So yes, the staff has told me that you're not willing to talk to us. I'm just wondering at this open event if you could
Well, you guys aren't very good at telling the truth, and so I don't think I'm in for an interview
I've never
today.
met you. She will not answer our questions about her past involvement, perpetuating the dangerous conspiracy theory called QAnon.
Are you still a Q candidate? Are you still involved with Q Anonymous?
As I said, any questions can be referred.
Though recently claiming she's not a QAnon candidate, Greene has left a trail of her own videos, tweets, and social media posts that establish her as a bigoted, anti-Islamic conspiracy theorist who recently also believed in the QAnon conspiracies, which are labeled by the FBI as a potential source of domestic terrorism.
All right, so Q is a patriot. We know that for sure.
In 2017, Green posted a half-hour video explaining her interpretation of secret signs from the anonymous insider called Q, whose followers believe is close to Donald Trump and fighting a deep state government run by Democrats, Republicans, and Hollywood elites, all part of a satanic pedophile ring.
I don't have any proof of this, but we're talking about who is Q, so I'm going to tell you what he says. According to him, many in our government are actively worshiping Satan. Q is anonymous, but he seems to be completely for the good. He seems to be totally on Trump's side, and he seems to be very high up and connected. Now, there's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take this global cable of Satan-worshiping pedophiles out. And I think we have the president to do it. And so I'm very excited about that.
This is the woman about to enter Congress. Orrin Siegel with the Anti-Defamation League is one of many who are more than concerned.
Once conspiracies become the normal way of communicating, then what you have is an entry point for even more extreme ideas. So our concern is, if QAnon and its supporters are going to be able to build a movement and get support, what comes next?
And QAnon is not the only conspiracy theory Green has believed in. She once supported a conspiracy theory about 9/11.
The so-called plane that crashed into the Pentagon. It's odd, there's never any evidence shown for a plane in the Pentagon.
She said she believes Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett are Muslim and the election of Ilhan Omar a warning.
There is an Islamic invasion into our government offices.
And she said this about Black and Hispanic men.
Being in gangs and dealing drugs is what holds them down. The lack of education is what holds them down. That's not a white person thing.
But it is her previous support of QAnon and its potential threat of domestic terrorism that raises the most concern. In a recent Fox News digital interview, she said she's not a QAnon candidate, but she did not retract her earlier support for Q's theories.
I think that's been the media's characterization of me. Never once during my campaign did I ever speak about QAnon or Q.
The only evidence she may no longer believe in Q is a quote from Fox News that said Green started finding misinformation.
But really what made me change my mind is as a person that's worked hard all my life, I chose a different path. And that's where I came to the place where I decided to run for Congress.
At a pro-gun rally this weekend, she stuck to Trump-like talking points, surrounded herself with armed men in military dress, and refused to clarify any of her positions, including on Q. So I asked her husband.
Does your wife still believe in the Q?
Have you watched the Fox News interview?
Yeah, she says she's not campaigning on Q, but she doesn't say she doesn't believe in it.
All are ridiculous.
No, that's what she said.
Don, we have given Marjorie Taylor Greene and her campaign every opportunity to clarify exactly what she does or doesn't believe about this Q conspiracy. It's a question that she and her campaign simply refuse to answer.
Crazy, ain't it? Crazy. If there is no other way you can say this. She is if you know who QAnon is, it's basically crazy people. It's conspiracy theorists, the tinfoil hats. The ones who sit there and say 9/11 was an inside job and the Parkland shooting was crisis actors and all this stuff. And it amazes me so. This is the part where I sit there and say, if you give crazy people airtime, or you give them, miscellaneous facts that are, if you give them stuff that's not even true, they run with it. And this QAnon, before it got banned from everywhere, was exactly that. And people ate it up because, again, conspiracy theorists always find facts fun, always find facts interesting because it feeds exactly what their fantasy is. It could be true or not. And this woman, who unfortunately is now part of Congress, has decided to file articles of impeachment against the president, who's barely been in there 3 days, going on 4 days now, barely been in there 4 days, not even a week, and you're trying to do impeachment for crimes that, again, make no sense whatsoever. Like I said, Georgia voted her in, which says a lot. doesn't it? Even more so that this is the door that Trump opened. No, honestly, this is the one thing I'll sit there and say from the Trump presidency that was a failure. It opened the door for other people to come in and literally take the Trump playbook. Sound important, play to the crowd's fears, and then when pressed to actually validate the information, they simply brush it off. No, the candidates should be held accountable. And I commend news stations like CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS and ABC as well, just because they are going to press these candidates. No, we really, stand on what you say. Even though people that believe in QAnon believe that there's some sort of giant pedophile satanic ring out there. And I'm just thinking to myself, that doesn't even, who wants to be a part of a satanic ring that's also pedophilish? And yet it's supposed to be 90% of Congress. Again, conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat people. But speaking of tinfoil hat people, I want to point this out, that of course, even though Donald Trump is gone, the impeachment is still going to happen. It's actually going to happen the beginning of the week of February 8th. Now, the reason why I say this is because, and I find this funny, that Mitch McConnell and some of the Republicans argued that they wanted a longer, they wanted to push the date of the impeachment trial back, because Nancy Pelosi will be submitting the articles of impeachment to Congress on Monday, and so therefore the trial will actually start on February the 8th with the newly elected Congress in, which means that in this case, the Democrats will hold a majority in the House, and they will virtually hold a majority in the Senate, with Madam Vice President Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker in a need by state. And it's funny, this is what I say about Republicans. You guys, it's no longer your party now, it's Trump's. Because Mitch McConnell was arguing that Donald Trump needs enough time to defend his case. Keep in mind in this case, not only be him being the only president in modern history to be impeached twice, now they're going after him because, let's be honest, he did incite the riot for the white terrorists to invade the Capitol on the same day that the Senate was basically counting the votes from the Electoral College to confirm who were then VP-elect and VP-elect Biden and Harris. So it's a pretty cut and dry case at this point. Even though Republicans are now asking for more time. And I find it interesting. I find it so very interesting that when Republicans aren't in the driver's seat, everything is fast. I mean, think about this for a second. I even posted this on my Facebook when Mitch McConnell asked that, Donald Trump needs enough time to build a defense. Let's be honest, Mitch. Let's look at your track record for a second. You fast-tracked two Supreme Court picks. You fast-tracked Brett Kavanaugh, even though at the time there was a question of sexual allegations that never was answered, and you fast-tracked it, and you curtailed the FBI from actually talking to witnesses, only to lead to his confirmation that all Republicans signed on for. You also fast-tracked Amy Coney Barrett, who, not even a few days after the late RGB was put to rest, you and the Republicans, again, because out of fear that Trump would lose the election, you again fast-tracked another Supreme Court justice pick in record timing. At the same time, you fast-tracked the horrible Trump tax plan that gave billions more to the rich and really kind of hampered the economy before COVID really got to us. You fast-tracked too. So it's amazing to me when it comes to Republicans how quickly they want to move stuff when they're in the driver's seat. But we now know that Republicans are now the minority. So now it's like, well, we need more time to look into this. And I keep saying this. I keep saying this to Democrats. Do unto others as it was done unto you. Which means, if I was a Democrat, and now that Chuck Schumer is now the majority leader, send every bill that you've ever wanted to send up to Congress, because now it can be heard. Now it can be voted on. Just because we need to move forward. There needs to be more progressive movement, and I think and I hope, because the Democrats, you now have 2 years before the next midterm elections to really get this right. I hope you do take the opportunity and push a lot of bills that were held back 4 years ago, personally. But speaking of bills, Biden's already in the driver's seat, and this man, since day one, as he said, has been signing executive orders.
And we need to move fast.
President Joe Biden, in his second full day in office, zeroing in on the second major crisis facing his administration, a teetering economy.
So now is a moment not to undershoot or to wait and see. Now is a moment to act.
With new weekly unemployment claims still hovering just shy of 1 million, Biden unveiling a pair of executive orders. One that would expand food assistance, speed up distribution of stimulus checks, and expand eligibility for unemployment benefits for workers who refuse jobs due to unsafe working conditions.
We're in a national emergency. We need to act like we're in a national emergency. So we've got to move with everything we've got. And we've got to do it together.
And one that lays the groundwork for a $15 minimum wage for federal workers. The executive orders capping a week of more than 24 actions to try and ramp up or completely reverse his predecessor's efforts to deal with the same issues. But as the White House grapples with a cascade of economic and public health crises, concern that its sweeping $1.9 trillion stimulus proposal has already run into partisan roadblocks, with conservatives and moderate Republicans alike blanching at the price tag. The White House, despite its flurry of executive actions, remains unbowed in its push.
We're at a precarious moment for the virus and the economy. Without decisive action, we risk falling into a very serious economic hole, even more serious than the crisis we find ourselves in.
But it's an immediate and potentially seismic challenge for a president who has made clear that bipartisanship is his preferred route. Still, a signal that some of the logjam is starting to break on at least one issue: the president's cabinet. Retired General Lloyd Austin, confirmed as defense secretary, the first black leader of the Pentagon in U.S. history. With Democrats saying Janet Yellen and Anthony Blinken, Biden's picks for Treasury and the State Department, will follow in short order. A team coming together as the stakes only get higher by the day.
Now, of course, it is great to finally get the first black Secretary of Defense. I love the fact of his pick. I think that it was a great pick, just because it was a guy that actually has experience and will probably try to avoid war as the last option anyway. But again, like I said, he's had, going back to President Joe Biden, he has actually signed a lot of executive orders. I think he's up to 35 and counting by now. But also at the same time, a lot of these executive orders, pretty much the ones, like I said before, were a bunch of really reversing a lot of Trump's picks. I mean, re-engaging with the World Health Organization, rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, which Texas is hating right now, revoking the permits for the Keystone XL pipeline, which again is a ecological disaster waiting to happen. Really getting back, initiating the DACA, where basically this is the DREAM Act, to basically do a pass to citizenship for undocumented individuals. Again, I'm all for that. Stopping construction of the border wall, because let's be honest, if anything was proven by the white terrorists at the U.S. Capitol, walls are ineffective. They really should. Also extending, a lot of other things too, but I just want to, the main things I want to get into was really about, as they pointed out, basically speeding up how people get their stimulus checks, and of course the $15 an hour minimum wage. It has been a long time coming. It needs to happen, because in the year 2021, $7.25 is we should even have that amount. Now realistically for me, I prefer it would have been higher, just because I believe that the minimum wage should actually reflect the GDP and production output of said country, which if you go by that, then the minimum wage should actually be between $20 to $23 an hour, just because they're taking current standards into place. Now, $15 an hour does go a long way, and I know for the simple fact of the matter is it's needed. This really should be unanimous. I can't think of any argument, and a lot of people have tried to argue this. Well, if everybody starts getting paid $15 an hour, that leads to loss of jobs. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's that old age conservative argument that if you increase the minimum wage, that means that employers will hire less. Which is not true. Which is obviously not true. Because even in an environment, because this is Reaganomics for you guys. They believe that if you feed the top, it trickles down. Some people actually still believe that, even though Reaganomics has been proven to be BS. It's proven to be that. A cup does not trickle down if the cup has no bottom. So, those who are, corporations, large-sized businesses that get all these wonderful tax cuts, they will for a while until the executive order goes into plan to reverse Trump's tax plan. We're really getting the benefits. But the problem is, what a lot of people don't realize is that our economy is based on consumer spending. And if your middle and lower classes aren't spending, the economy will tank. So, of course, if you pay those very same classes more, the economy flourishes. The only time the economy doesn't flourish very well is when the rich get richer. And honestly, historically, I've been saying this. Historically, the economy has done well under Democratic leadership. Under Democratic presidential administrations, the economy has done well. Under Republican presidential administrations, the economy has tanked. I guarantee if you look it up, I wish I had the chart pulled up in front of me, but the charts I usually go by and just going by the National Economic Institute will all say the same thing. That for the simple fact of the matter is, we do better under Democrats because they actually institute higher taxes on the rich than Republicans who reduce it. I'm just saying. And $15 an hour really is a great start. I really wanted to be raised higher. I mean, there is unfortunately until he does want to get a stimulus tax in, and again, that's probably going to be brought up this week as far as getting those $1,400 stimulus checks. And I still want some clarification because again, one-time payments are not going to. I mean, they're going to help, but that's not the end solution. We still need to have monthly stimulus checks, and I hate to say this. It is amazing to me how, if I was Bernie Sanders, because everybody sees those Bernie Sanders memes out there, if I was Bernie, I would sit there and say, so people said I was crazy to say we need to start issuing $2,000 stimulus checks to every American until this pandemic is over. And they called me crazy. And yet, you've already had one attempt at stimulus payments. I think it was $1,200. Oh, you couldn't get the number $1,200. We heard the number $1,200 for several months under Trump. And then you got $600, and now you're going to get eventually $1,400. And if I was Bernie Sanders, I'd be like, so y'all guys just took my idea and just ran with it, huh? I mean, it does need to have continual checks. And I think that we need to get to $2,000 checks every month until the pandemic is over. I'm sorry, Bernie Sanders had a point. Now, he's just too humble to sit there and say, so y'all just going to just take my idea and not give me credit? Cool. But moving right along, guys, like I said before, we're getting to the crazy part of, I still believe that even though justice is blind, there's still two, if I could find words, that'd be great. There are still two forms of justice in America. Speaking of the first story, which again I love because Kentucky is not taking this laying down very honestly. Three of the grand jurors in the Breonna Taylor case are wanting to impeach the Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. Of course, for the story I've been following on, of course, Breonna Taylor, a woman that was literally shot in her own bed as cops not only had the wrong house, but again, fired on her while she was in bed. And of course, her boyfriend at the time did fire back because he did have a gun. However, it was registered, it was cell phone, and it'll always be an argument that the police did not announce themselves, or even though they had a no-knock warrant, still did not check the warrant, things of that nature, and of course led to the tragedy of this woman's loss of life. Now, as you already know, guys, Daniel Cameron was assigned to the case. And as we all know, the way attorney generals work, they may show the evidence to whether convict or barely just let a case slide. In this case, 3 jurors are saying that they were not only shown not all the evidence, but they were also not given the chance to consider murder cases against the 3 officers. Citizens did file a petition Friday seeking the impeachment of Cameron on charges of breach of public trust and failure to comply with duties for misrepresenting to the nation the findings of the grand jury, and abuse of office and breach of duties of professional responsibility and ethics, both of which are connected to the lack of charges filed against the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department officers excuse me, implicated in the death of Breonna Taylor in September. So again, I can't blame those very same jurors, because those very same jurors right now are literally saying that this man was doing a cover-up. And I still say it was a cover-up. I still say the Louisville police was a cover-up. I still say the Attorney General, who is still Daniel Cameron right now, still involved in a cover-up, because the simple fact of the matter is Breonna Taylor was murdered. And yet there is no justice. Even though they said they fired the 2 detectives, which I find amazing. They said they fired the 2 detectives who did the arrest, who did the no-knock warrant. They fired them, and I'm like, that's not enough. You said the officers that were involved were fired. Still, that's not enough. We're not asking for officers to be fired. We're asking officers to be held in accountability. Just like in all the other cases we're still following out there. I mean, it's literally crazy that you think, well, the officer's fired. That's not enough. We ask these people to protect and serve, and so when they go out of their own bounds or break the vows that they've actually held, then they need to be treated as criminals, and they should be tried and charged. But the last thing a cop needs is a pass, because I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel. With that being said, that's like I said about defunding the police and retraining and de-escalation, negotiation, also special awareness for those that have autism or special needs to recognize the signs. A lot of other police organizations around the world are implementing these things, even the more so that, like, you can't be a cop without a college degree. Again, I'm for that too. For some specialized areas, and unfortunately in America, you still can take 6 months out of your life and become a law enforcement officer. You can't do your job in 6 months. Not when hairstylists, nail technicians, and every other profession at least require a year of training before you can actually do it. Law enforcement is the only career that you only need 6 months and then you're an officer. Scary, right? But anyway, like I said, two forms of justice, because I did talk about this on Wednesday as well, where the U.S. teen in the Cayman Islands was for breaking protocol. We now have a name to that. Skylar Mack. Now, for all those that don't remember, this story where she basically decided to go to the Cayman Islands to go see her boyfriend participate in a jet skiing competition. You don't get any whiter than that. So anyway, she was going to the Cayman Islands to go watch this jet skiing competition. However, Cayman Islands did have COVID-19 protocols in effect, which means that she had to be monitored and in a 14-day quarantine protocol when she arrived at the Cayman Islands. So, during this protocol, her and her boyfriend decided to say screw it, broke protocol, and went to a function during the protocol, which basically made her a walking potential biohazard. Of course, Cayman Island officials did find this out, did jail the woman, and decided to make an example of her by giving her 4 months in prison. And the family at the time were screaming, "Oh, well, she doesn't deserve this. She doesn't deserve 4 months. She doesn't deserve 4 months in prison," and things of that nature. And of course, her family did reach out to Dorito, pleading for help, and she was reduced, which I find funny. Her sentence was reduced from 4 months to 2 months. And then after only serving a month in jail, she was released and allowed to come home. And I love the fact they try to say, we express genuine remorse, a genuine appreciation for what happened and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, This is not. If she was black, she'd still be in jail. Let's think about this for a second. You cannot feel terrible for an individual such as this, because number one, she didn't follow the rules. Number two, she broke the rules willingly. And number three, she made herself a hazard around those who are following the rules. So therefore, she decided to do whatever she wanted to do. And when she got caught, it was like, oh, I didn't know. It's not that bad. It is that bad. COVID-19 is still taking a lot of lives. And even though vaccines are happening, of course, they weren't happening at this time of when this happened. It's the whole idea of you're just making a situation worse because you didn't want to follow instructions. So I don't feel bad for the fact that she had to. I mean, if it was me, I'd make her serve out the entire 4 months in jail. I mean, there are examples have to be made, but because she's a certain skin tone, of course, she got a pass. Even more so, where the Kenosha Killer, and I say killer because he is a killer, Kyle Rittenhouse's bond terms were changed after a bar visit, because keep in mind, he was released. The guy Kyle Rittenhouse, the team was basically killing 2 men in a protest in Kenosha last year at a place that he had no business being to, with a gun he really should never own, and simply put, going to protect businesses that really didn't need him. Yes, that guy was released on $2 million bail, but immediately, but it's funny because he was actually seen out and about doing basically this.
In the pictures released by the district attorney, Kyle Rittenhouse can be seen going into Pudgy's Pub in Mount Pleasant with his mother, Wendy, in the early afternoon of January 5th. Court documents say Rittenhouse was wearing a T-shirt with the words "free as F-word" on the front, and that within minutes of arriving at the bar, he was serenaded by 5 men singing a song known to be the anthem of the Proud Boys white supremacist group. In the pictures, he could be seen flashing the OK sign, which has been co-opted as a sign of white power by known white supremacist groups, say the prosecutors. The Illinois teen is also seen drinking 3 beers in the 90 minutes he was in the bar. While that is illegal in Illinois, in Wisconsin it is allowed because he was with a parent. Prosecutors say because Rittenhouse's $2 million bail was raised by outside groups, neither he nor his family have any financial stake in his bond. They are asking for 4 changes to his bail conditions. 1, that he be prohibited from consuming alcohol. 2, that he not be allowed anywhere where alcohol is served. 3, that he be prohibited from making any public displays associated with white power or white supremacy. And 4, that he have no known contact with militia members or members of white supremacist groups, including the Proud Boys. Rittenhouse was not in violation of any of his current bail restrictions. I reached out to his attorney, but I haven't heard back yet. Tom Durian, TM.
Crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. That the simple fact of the matter is, this kid, and I can't say kid anymore, this basically terrorist decided that, hey, I'm going to go out and have a drink and hang out with the same white supremacists and basically show my true colors. And now his bonds have changed. And I'm surprised because his bond was revoked, because again, this was done by the My Pillow CEO guy, and I guess that one failed actor from NYPD Blue, Rick Schroeder, who were also stepping in for this young man, talking about, he was only doing right and things of that nature. How? When obviously he wasn't. And of course now, he's basically, like I said before now, if I was the prosecutor for this guy's case, I'm going to use that evidence against him. Because again, what other reason does a boy at the time decided he needed to go protect the businesses at a city he didn't live in, with a gun he didn't own, and decided to be driven up there by his mother? I'm like, him and his mother should both face crimes. That's just being honest. They really should, just because some fact of the matter, it's terrorism in its purest form. Even more so, some more recent news. Like I said before, there's two different justice systems in America. This one right here, it still baffles me. And this was actually during the Capitol riot.
Some new reporting that the FBI has charged this Pennsylvania woman in the Capitol riot, and they're now looking into whether the woman intended to ship a computer from Speaker Pelosi's office to Russia. What more can you tell us about that?
That's right, Craig. So this is just one of the 80 plus now arrests that have been made in connection with what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. And this would not be an extraordinary case if it were not what apparently, according to the FBI, a person they describe as a former romantic partner told them. So this person is Riley Williams. She's from the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area. This is her driver's license, according to the FBI driver's license photo. And so basically what they said is that this former romantic partner talked to them, left several messages on their tip line, and essentially said, Craig, that she had told her, Williams had told this person that she intended to take this computer or hard drive that was taken from Speaker Pelosi's office, send it to Russia, and there a friend would pass it along to the SVR, which is kind of the American equivalent of the CIA. There's no indication here that the laptop has left the United States. As a matter of fact, they say that according to their investigation, it appears that the computer device has been destroyed or at least has not left the country at this point. The FBI says this matter is still under investigation. It's not yet clear whether Williams is in custody, and it's not clear, according to the FBI, why she didn't end up shipping this laptop to Russia. It also isn't clear whether or not the person in Russia had some sort of direct connection to the SVR or was just going to drive up to the front gate and hand it over. A lot more information needs to be gathered here. This comes from a criminal complaint that's involved in this case, and obviously we're going to be tracking it to see where the FBI investigation progresses. But it is a troubling statement if true, and certainly indicates to the FBI that this is somebody that they want to get a hold of and obviously want to be able to recover that information.
Let's turn now.
There we go. All right, so again, that Riley June Williams is the woman there. And now, of course, she has been surrendered to the custody of her mother. But again, another white terrorist who was actually involved in the riots took government property. She took a laptop from Nancy Pelosi's office and again accused of selling it to Russian intelligence. And yet, it's still not within custody. This is the thing that kills me about this. So not only did she basically do a failed coup d'etat, took government information, took government property, has been said that she will sell it to the Russians, and you're still at home. This is the problem I have with this. You're still at home. Everything that's been done, you're still at home. And I'm trying to figure out how, mind you, because like I keep on saying, there's two different forms of justice. That Riley Williams, even though she is a white domestic terrorist, was allowed to go home. Yet, the reason why I bring this up, Khalif Browder was not allowed to go home. For all those who don't remember about Khalif Browder, that was accused of stealing a backpack in New York. He was accused of stealing a backpack and was charged with second-degree robbery. And here's the thing. He literally and figuratively was at Rikers Island Prison, a prison that was for more hardened criminals, even though he was accused of second-degree robbery, was sentenced to Rikers Island until his trial, in which he was at Rikers Island for nearly 3 years. Think about this. A black man accused of stealing a backpack, gets sent to prison while waiting trial, and awaits trial for 3 years. Until he eventually he kills himself. Hangs himself in his prison cell. And I'm just thinking to myself, and this was what his brother was saying.
And he told me what was going on, and I just came back in from my house. I rushed over there, and by the time I got there, the officer came to me and he said, "Sorry for your loss." I said, "What do you mean, sorry for my loss?" He goes, "Oh, nobody told you." I said, "Told me what?" And then I look, and then I see my brother laying face down.
You saw him?
Yes. He was laying face down,
Ugh.
and they put the sheet over him.
Did you have a moment with him?
I had to hug my I had to hug my brother's deathless body. It was warm, and I kept on thinking that he was going to turn around and look at me, but he didn't.
Tell me about your brother. When this goes back to, here you go. This goes back a couple of years to when he was a junior in high school. Tell me about your brother before.
Now, also, I need to make a slight correction. He was actually released. Back in 2013. He hung himself when he was at home. But again, it still says up. Again, this still makes no sense. 16 years old and in prison, was released in 2013, and then, of course, when he turned 22, he hung himself. Again, this alone just boggles my mind. It's like I said before, there's two justice systems in America, and you can tell, because if you're white, you get a pass, but if you're black, no. Or if you're anything non-white, because even other minorities, I mean Hispanic, Native American, Indian. I mean, you go down for justice, and that's what you find, just us. But I think it's crazy that if you look at these past couple of articles that we just went over, it's the contrast is astounding. It really is. But moving right along, guys, like I said, we're actually going to get, that's really the news that we have. We're going to get to our feel-good news segment. Because of how the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things in the world. Some of it good, some of it not so good. And sometimes it gets really, really, really dark. So again, this is the weekend, and I know for a lot of us, we're enjoying our 48 hours of freedom before we have to go back to the grind of Monday. And if you are working this weekend, then hopefully your shift will go by very quickly. But Saturday, we want to leave you guys out on a good note. We want to have some positive vibes and things going. So I did find a couple of stories here. Actually, I have 4 stories. I usually have 3, but I have 4. The first one I want to say is I always love these anonymous donor stories. This anonymous donor decided to go to the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund and decided that he wanted to gift $40 million. And the catch to this $40 million donation is to go to future civil rights lawyers. Especially with that $40 million gift that they give out, they do plan to put 50 students through law schools around the country. In return, they must commit to 8 years of racial justice work in the South, starting with a 2-year postgraduate fellowship in a civil rights organization. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, for the simple fact of the matter is, the world could use more defense lawyers and things of that nature, especially future civil rights lawyers, because I think, ooh, there goes my voice, because I think that as we move forward and really uncover a lot of things that a lot of people want to keep hidden, there's going to be a need for civil rights lawyers. So again, I love the fact this person, especially with the NAACP, decided to give away $40 million. To do that, I just think that's pretty cool. And like I said before, people becoming lawyers is definitely a beautiful thing for a great cause, especially for civil rights. Now this one, which I did not know, I consider myself a story. I like to consider myself a student of history, especially when the fact it's Black history. And let's be honest, the Black history that in some schools really isn't Black history. It's just whitewashed to make some white people feel better. But I love the fact that this story, which I did not know about, and the history that it comes with it.
It might not be the first thing that comes to mind, but for Maya Camille Broussard, the two go hand in hand. Al recently found out how she's baking the way to a better future for her community.
People never say, "Oh, hi." They always say, "Hi." There's this like drawn out expression of love for pie.
For Maya Camille Broussard, the love of pie is practically baked into her DNA.
My dad was a criminal defense attorney in Chicago and was completely obsessed with baking and eating pie.
But he had another passion as well.
My dad would say, everyone deserves representation. Everyone deserves a second chance.
When Maya Camille graduated from college, she began a career as an art teacher. even opening her own gallery on Chicago's South Side. But just days before, tragedy struck. A week before you open up your gallery, your dad tragically passes.
I'm the type of person that whenever something bad happens to me, I tend to throw myself into my work. The gallery was slated to open 6 days after his funeral. It was a lot. It was a lot.
5 years later, a chance encounter inspiring Maya Camille to blend her father's memory with a new mission.
I was visiting some of my cousins in San Francisco, and there was this pie shop, and my cousin said to me as we walked into the shop, you know, they hire a lot of teens who are suffering from homelessness. And then something just clicked, you know, within me, like, I'm supposed to be doing something like this.
In 2015, Justice of the Pies was born with an unusual recipe for success. What's the mission of Justice of the Pies besides great pie?
But we always say that the service that we give is secondary to the pies that we serve. Our goal is to lend a hand and to take up a cause where we see fit.
With that in mind, Maya Camille launching the I Need Love initiative for kids experiencing food insecurity.
We'll go to a grocery store and I'll give each kid a $50 gift card to kind of teach them the life skill of budgeting and shopping for a recipe. I am encouraging kids to exercise their creativity in the kitchen.
In the midst of the pandemic, though, Maya Camille has had to pivot. What's been the biggest challenge for you?
I rely on farmers markets and fairs and festivals to make the majority of my income. And I also rely on corporate catering. So the markets are canceled, the fairs are canceled, and nobody is working in the offices. My sources of revenue, that water tap is completely shut off.
And that's not the only obstacle the pandemic's created.
I'm hearing impaired. I rely on lip reading. Imagine me trying to communicate with people while everyone is wearing a mask. It's frustrating.
But Maya Camille not letting any of that deter her from her mission, serving others.
So I primarily have been focusing my efforts on feeding the front line. We serve and deliver over 2,800 meals to doctors, nurses, hospital staff.
What inspires you?
For me, richness is about acquiring a certain dollar amount. But wealth is about the quality of your life and how you feel. So when I'm giving back and I'm making an impact with someone else's life in a positive way, I feel good about myself and I feel wealthy.
It doesn't hurt that the pie's pretty good too. Wow.
Yeah.
And while I didn't get any of her secret recipes, I did get another kind of secret out of Maya Camille. Now, is this true that in fact, you, Maya Camille, like cake more than pie?
Yes, I do. Pound cake, come on. It's buttery, it's moist, and it has a crunchy bottom. Pound cake, man.
What do you think your dad would think about this?
My dad used to smile with his whole face. I just imagine that he's smiling with his whole entire face. My dad was very extroverted, so I know he didn't have it just bragging and won't shut up.
A beautiful smile, too.
I thought that was pretty cool. Again, with the whole time, like I said, she wants to actually, give out. And who doesn't love pie? Who doesn't? I love pie. I mean, it's a beautiful, wondrous thing. It really is. Oh man, did I lose? I think I lost something. Hang me 1 second, guys. Did I lose something? Nope. Okay, cool. Thought I lost something. Sorry. Had a brain lapse for a moment. I thought I lost the rest of my stories. But like I said before, I have another one again. This one is still, like I said before, it amazes me about kids. And the fact of the matter is, what they really see and how they perceive the world and things of that nature. And this one right here, I said this was a 5-year-old that came up with this idea. A 5-year-old.
This is the birth of the king of kindergarten.
At just 5 years old, Amore Coleman is a little girl with big ideas.
Hi, I'm Amore. Welcome to the book drive.
Amor goes to kindergarten in Indianapolis, where she noticed the books she reads in class rarely include characters that look like her, so she decided to fix that.
We're collecting books to show the Black History Month from my friends at my school.
With help from her mother, she launched a book drive to collect stories about people of different races and ethnic backgrounds, one for each student in her grade.
Here is a page of the book.
Previewing the options on Instagram.
It makes me feel that we can give books out to other people so they can learn about our history too.
She put her wish list on Amazon, and the books came pouring in. Instead of a few dozen, several hundred have already been donated. Amor's mother hopes it's been a meaningful experience for her daughter.
I hope that she feels empowered and proud, and feel like that she, even at the age of 5, can make an impact at her school and the community.
Teaching us all a lesson about the ABCs of activism.
Don't tease people if you're Black and if they're white.
And why we're never too young to make a difference. Naomi Ruckham.
Y'all, 5 years old. 5. Oh wow. I am amazed. 5 years old. 5 years old, and she understands that she wants to see more stories. Representation, I keep saying this, and I know I'm going to sound preachy when I say this. Representation matters. That right there, at 5, she is aware. I mean, granted, a lot of it may have to do with her parents, true, but at 5, she's aware? That's beautiful, man. And at the same time, I like the fact she says, I want to see more stories with people that look like me. And the fact of what she is doing to do that, and the people that are donating those books to where other kids can read as well, that's amazing. Yeah, like I said, I always say this about children. I love kids. I will always say this. If you get them while they're young, and you really show them the way, possibilities are freaking endless, man. Freaking endless. They really are. And I said I love stories like that. And the last one I got, guys, again, this is just a repeat of Amanda Gorman. If you don't know who she is, she was actually there at the inauguration where she read her poem, "The Hill We Climb," and I just have to play it again just before we end this because it truly is a beautiful poem.
Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
There's nothing really I could say at that point. That was actually her, again, that was their, Amanda Gorman with their poem of The Hill We Climb. And honestly, guys, that alone, to me, is one of the most beautiful things that it was ever said at inauguration, besides hearing Madam Vice President. But that's really all the story. That's really all that we got, guys, for this week. And so I do thank you all for watching. Before I do get out of here, I do got to do some shameless plugging. I always do shameless plugging because not only do I believe in promoting those, promoting those that honestly are black businesses. I have no problem with that, or just small business in general. But I do believe in black business because we do need to basically give back, putting black dollars where it makes sense to put us back, because we are the biggest consumers out there. So before I do get out of here, I do have some shameless plugging to do as I'm trying to pull up everybody's, give me a second here because I am failing miserably. I should actually have this pulled up from Jump Street, actually. But again, I apologize. I'm working on it. But that being said, oh, that didn't work out the way I intended. I gotta find that one. I don't know why I'm finding that one. Crap. This is This is not exactly how I should have started this. Whoops. Oh, there it is. That's what I'm looking for. Awesome. Okay. Now that I found it, because that was interesting. Okay, so let me start with my buddy Vaughn. Big VZA down on social media. If you don't know him, definitely look him up. And if you want to be his friend, go ahead, add him. He's friendly sometimes. But once you are his friend, just go to his videos to where you'll be seeing on his podcast. He will be returning soon, and I cannot wait because I definitely do miss his podcast. I'll start with the first one called the BST. The BST could be a news podcast. That news could be music, video games, or trailers for movies, as he loves to show. I call him the king of weird trailers because he always finds the ones that just make me really think about his taste in movies sometimes. But it's definitely an interactive show, so you'll be able to comment, as you can see I do on the right, and just have fun with it. Aside from that, he does have another show called RAF. What is RAF? RAF is an entertainment podcast where we basically take ratchetness and crank it up to 11 and finding certain stories that just really are just entertaining. Some of them make you laugh. Some of them will be like, what in the world were you thinking kind of situations. But again, interactive show just like mine, also always entertaining as well. He also has another show called... which I'm looking forward to when that comes back, is the Rhythmness Music Podcast. You can read us over the rhythm, where Vaughn and myself and others really look over music, whether Vaughn finds it or asks us to actually bring up new music and discuss it and see, if we like it or not. And we all are different on the musical scale, but differences in music lead to great conversations. And of course, with the Rhythmness Music Podcast, that is also interactive as well. And finally, Vaughn has a pop-up show, and the pop-up show is that it's called Fonkin' Around, in which Vaughn makes beats, kind of like this. And you know it's a cold beat when you gotta get popcorn to it. But Vaughn is a musical connoisseur. He likes to make beats from beginning to end and show the entire process, and that's what Fonkin' Around is all about. Definitely look out for that on Facebook, as it could be a daily thing or just whenever inspiration strikes him. I've actually seen him do 3 Fonkin' Arounds in one day. But if you like music and you like beats, then trust me, you're gonna love Fonkin' Around. Now, all of Vaughn's shows can be found under his Facebook page at Big VZA Dot. Definitely look up Big VZA Dot on all social medias to know when he'll be going live. As he has said before, all his podcasts are returning soon, and I'm looking forward to seeing when they do go live, because I'm pretty sure he's going to have a lot to say, honestly. Moving right along, guys. Do you like t-shirts? Do you like custom t-shirts? Do you like mugs? Do you like pretty much anything printed? Well, Little Creations by Kelly is also for you. Little Creations by Kelly is locally owned and operated here in Tennessee. She does make shirts just like these up here, in which she can do, Christmas shirts if you're into that kind of thing. She's also did this shirt, which I actually did wear on one of my podcasts, the Lock Life shirt, which she definitely did like, and I liked it too, just because of the lion and the locks, because there's always beautiful about locks. We never call them dreadlocks. Of course, Man Down, which is, I guess, an inside joke. My rolls are homemade, of course, things like that. But anyway, she makes shirts like this, as well as cups, mugs, masks, because we are still in a COVID-19 situation. So she also makes masks as well, and that's actually some of her stuff that she's actually done. She even does birthday shirts, in case you ever want to do birthday shirts for kids, and of course aprons in case you ever want to do wine and sip and things of that nature. But definitely reach out to her via her Facebook page at Little Creations by Kelly, just in case you might want to have a certain shirt or mask or anything of that nature done, because that's actually just a little bit of her work that she's done. So if you are interested, then definitely look her up on Facebook, Little Creations by Kelly. And also, because it is getting close to Valentine's Day, I don't know about you guys, it is getting close to Valentine's Day, and I mean close because time, the month of January just went through the window, actually. But as we're getting to Valentine's Day, and if you just want catering done all together, I'm also on Facebook. Look up Tanya's Touch of Elegance. She's also locally here in Nashville, Tennessee, for all your catering needs. And she actually has a Valentine's Day special, which I'm going to let her explain.
Hi, I'm Tanya with Tanya's Touch of Elegance. And during this COVID time, trying to stay safe, we are going to present a Valentine's Day special for 2. I'm going to present this video, and you just give me a call or text me at the end of the video and let me know if you're interested, and we can have a dinner for 2 delivered to you. I will have the prices forthcoming by the end of the week, but just a little something to pique your interest. Thank you.
You know, it'd be great if I actually unmuted myself before I said all that. So that was Tanya's Touch of Elegance. As you can see, guys, she does have a Valentine's Day special, and I can tell you this from personal experience: her food is great. Because I don't consider myself a professional cook. I do consider myself a professional eater, though. But as you can see, that she did have a lot of great pairings, especially the steak and potatoes. I'm more of a steak and fries guy, but hey. I don't complain when she cooks because she's never cooked anything bad, and I'm telling you this from personal experience. Although the Patron and Wolford Reserve, I can live with Patron. I can't wait to try the Rocks Terramon tequila, but the fact that those pairings of the Wolford Reserve and the flask and the whiskey glass and the cigar, if you're into smoking, that's all cool as well. But again, definitely look her up on Facebook at Tanya's Touch of Elegance if you are interested in the Valentine's Day special, or if you're just interested in catering at all. She really does do it all. I have seen this woman put a wedding together, and she is completely awesome about that. So, like I said before, that's really all that I have. Of course, I guess I got to promote myself since I promoted everybody else. I guess I got to promote myself. The link at the bottom, if you copy and paste that into any browser, takes you to the How the Frack We Got Here YouTube page. Of course, my schedule of podcasting, aside from some minor adjustments. Every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is the Burned Out Podcast, in which I tell funny stories about my experiences dealing with the public from an IT standpoint. So if you've ever worked in customer service, retail, or just working with the public in general, and you have special stories, then you're going to find this hilarious. And that's actually the mission of the Burned Out Podcast, is just laugh about experiences. And if you don't laugh, then lighten up, because I'm probably talking about you. And of course, we are starting Wednesdays now to do the How the Frack We Got Here podcast on Wednesdays between 8 to 10 p.m. just to cover the middle of the week. Of course, on Saturdays, as you're watching now, we will have a weekend recap from 10 a.m. to noon. And of course, a little bit later tonight, between 8 to 10 p.m., will be the Off Limits podcast, where nothing is off limits. No subject too far and too great, because I do believe that anything can be talked about. We just have to be brave enough to put it out there first. Of course, with that being said, that is the adult show, so better not bring your kids. Of course, Sunday will be the Get Bit podcast. That is my blurred podcast on Sundays between 8 to 10 p.m., in which I cover everything from video games to anime to superhero television to certain movies. And trust me, a lot of movies are getting put on the back burner right now. We will talk about the Resident Evil 8 trailer and the fact that I've already pre-ordered it, because trust me, it looks awesome. We will talk about a lot of the movies getting pushed back, like Black Widow and Uncharted are now being pushed back because they still have hope that movie theaters will still be open sometime this year. Good luck. And of course, I will give some reviews of WandaVision episode 3. Once me and a very excited, dedicated Disney fan watch it. I'm not going to say her name. And also, we're going to give our review of Walker, the reboot, since episode 1 did occur. And of course, Batwoman, episode 2, once that occurs on Sundays as well. So, hopefully see you guys all there. All of my podcasts can be found under their own Facebook or YouTube pages. So, when they're on Facebook or on the YouTube, look them up by their names. The Burned Out Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, the Off Limits Podcast, and Get Bit, that is GITBIT, to see every podcast I've done so far. Please like, share, and subscribe, and actually show others who might be interested in this, because like I said, we're just trying to grow this out to be a wonderful thing. Aside from that, guys, COVID-19 is definitely real. We are getting closer and closer to 400,000 deaths in the U.S. ICU capacity right now is at 5% or lower across the board. Please, oh please, oh please, wear a mask, wear protective gear, only go out if you actually absolutely have to, and please avoid large crowds if need be. Also, thank you nurses, nurses aides, environmental people that work in hospitals for all that you do. You guys are not given enough credit for really doing, you know how old folks said, y'all doing the Lord's work. When truly you guys are really physically and emotionally being exhausted from the long hours you put in to keep COVID-19 people comfortable as humanly possible, as well as trying to avoid bringing this home to your families. You guys are the real heroes. And if I were y'all, I'd go to Biden and be like, Biden, these loans need to be wiped, sir. And also, thank you, essential workers, and also be kind to essential workers. I'm talking about the ones that are, working in fast food or retail, customer service, things of that nature. A lot of us were able to work from home, and that's great, but a lot of us were also not able to work from home, and they may have to go in and at great risk to themselves while keeping the lights on for the rest of us. It's just, look, it's a rough time. We all need to be a little bit kinder to each other. Aside from that, guys, like I say here on How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We're not trying to change your opinion. We're not trying to persuade you. We're simply doing what news stations of old used to do, which is basically just inform you and allow you to make up your own mind. Because an informed community can make a lot of better decisions than an uninformed one. An uninformed one got us Dorito. An informed one got us our first Madam Vice President, in which, unfortunately, may be spending the first 4 years cleaning up the term of the previous president. Here's to hoping Donald Trump gets impeached and we never see him enter a government office again. Aside from that, guys, thank you for watching this live, and you're watching this on the playback. Please go ahead and comment if it's live. I still want to know you guys' opinion, whether you liked it or not. I'm open to all criticism, and like I said, if there's any stories that I missed, please reach out to me at William Buchanan on Facebook to let me know, and I'll try to include them in the next podcast that I do after thorough research. Aside from that, guys, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Be safe. Be safe. Be kind to each other, and we'll get through this.